Hello, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to this new series, The Jewish Bookshelf. In this series, what we hope to do is to present to the newcomer brief explanations of the various books in the Jewish universe and how the literature all gels together. To somebody who's new to the study of Jewish text, of Hebrew text, they can be presented with various names and authors of varying authority, and the newcomer doesn't always know how to take these various books, where to place them in terms of priority, how to understand how they fit together in general scholarship. So anyway, these videos will be short. If this sounds interesting to you, or if you found this video or my other videos to be useful, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. If you'd like to support my efforts, look in the description below, and you can follow the link to either my PayPal account or my Patreon page. Okay, so the Jewish bookshelf. Now, obviously, the first book is the book, the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh. This is a phrase that roughly equals the Old Testament in non-Jewish Bibles. Hebrew Bible is known in Hebrew by this phrase Tanach, variously transliterated Tanach or Tanakh. I prefer the CH transliteration. Tanakh, but in Hebrew, anytime you see these two little apostrophes, it's a pretty good sign that we're dealing with what's called in Hebrew Roshei Tevot, an acronym. The first letters of the word of a series of words made to make up another word, just like in English. So Tanakh is made up of Torah, see, Tav, Torah, that's the first 5 books, the books of Moses. The Nevi'im, Nun, that's the prophets. And Chaf, this is a Chaf Safit, this is the regular Chaf. And this is Ketuvim, or the writings. Okay, if these letters, if you do not know these letters, look at my other videos. I have series on beginning Hebrew, so check that out. Okay, so Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, Torah, the prophets, and the writings. Okay, so in the Hebrew Bible there are 24 books. Now, those of you who are using or used to using non-Jewish Bibles, you're used to 39 books. So this takes some explanations. First of all, Samuel, books like Chronicles, Divrei Yomim, you'll have 1 and 2. In the Hebrew, that's one book. Now, they're marked as 1 and 2 just because the rest of the world marks them. But in truth, that's one book. Or Samuel, Shmuel Aleph, Shmuel Beis, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. In truth, that's one book, whereas it would be 2 books in the Christian Bible. Now, also, we have the 12 prophets, the minor prophets, the Trei Aser Nevi'im. That's 12 books that appear as one book in the Hebrew Bible, and appears as 12 individual little treatises in the non-Jewish Bibles. Okay, so this basically, the content-wise, it's going to equal in terms of content roughly that of a Protestant Old Testament. It's just that we count it as 24 books, and they would count it as 39 books. Okay, the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, was canonized in about 500 BCE by the men of the Great Assembly. The men of the Great Assembly is that generation of scholars people like Ezra and Nehemiah, who were tasked with the business of setting up shop again in Jerusalem after the first Exodus, when the Jews received permission to return and to begin in services in Jerusalem. In the temple, it was basically these people who rose to the top and became leaders, but they left their mark on Judaism as we know it. These people would eventually would evolve into what we know of today as rabbis. Okay, the Hebrew Bible has a different order than non-Jewish Bibles. So there's various reasons and explanations as to why that is. I'll leave that up to you. There's a very fine Wikipedia page on the topic. You could look at it. So we tend to have an order that follows the Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, the three basic flavors of books in the Hebrew Bible, whereas the Protestant Bibles have a different order. Okay, I encourage you to look into it if that interests you. Okay, so let's talk about some various editions of the Hebrew Bible that you might be familiar with or you might be able to purchase. You'll find links to these below, to Amazon. Just if you want to go look at them, purchase them. First one is probably going to be well known. This is a Christian Bible, a Christian text that's frequently used in seminaries, the Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartense. And it is truly it's a scholastic Bible. You see, the font here is not exceptionally user-friendly. It has the Masorah, which is basically textual notes on the side. And it, probably most interestingly, has the critical apparatus on the bottom that will cue you into textual variants. You see some Greek, it'll compare to the Samaritan, various other textual variants for the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible. Okay, so if that interests you, look into the BHS. As that edition is not terribly useful, they have made a reader's edition. I was not able to obtain a page of this edition. I own the regular BHS. I do not own this edition. But apparently it has a running Hebrew-English dictionary. Along the bottom of the page, it introduces you to the Hebrew words in English. So I can imagine this would be useful for people who want some of these scholastic material, but also are not fully up to speed on Hebrew and are in their learning phase. So this seems to fill two needs that one person might feel they need. Okay, so just look into that if that interests you. Probably the first widely available Hebrew-English Tanakh was that of the JPS, the Jewish Publication Society, their edition of the Tanakh. It was one of the first ones that appeared in non-specialty bookstores. Things like your mall bookshops and whatnot had this. It was the first readily available Hebrew-English Tanakh. They also redid the font. They have their own font, which is a crisp, modern font, easy on the eyes. And what they did is on the same page, they put the Hebrew and the English in parallel with each other. I prefer the parallel being on separate pages. I prefer a full page of Hebrew and a full page of English, but other people prefer other things. I feel a little less constrained whenever I have a page of English and a page of Hebrew. Other people might feel differently. Anyway, this is what this looks like. It's a decent translation. Those of you following my one verse a week series, where I break down one verse a week in the Hebrew, and then I compare it to readily available translations. JPS is one of the translations I picked for that series. So I will frequently have qualms with some of their translations, but by and large, it's a decent translation. Probably the most common Hebrew English Bible today is the Art Scroll Stone Tanakh. Definitely in Jewish circles, it's probably the most ubiquitous. We see them used in synagogues. You probably recognize this. It comes in 3 different bindings, I think, maybe 4: green, black, maroon, and white. So you have your choice. They have it on 2 pages. They have a full page of Hebrew. See, they also have their own font, the famous Art Scroll font. All their publications are in this font. I find it to be a very readable font, very easy on the eyes. It has notes that tell you different readings for the holidays. If you want to use it, at the bottom of each page, there's an anthologized English commentary from various rabbinic works. Here's what the English text looks like. And they have notes on the side to direct you to the content of each paragraph. And again, there's an anthologized commentary from various rabbinic sources. So this is probably on average going to be the Tanakh that you're going to see most often in daily life that's used in America today. But yet there's a newcomer, the Koren Tanakh. Koren is one of the older Israeli publishing houses that have really begun to make a stab into the American market. They're marketing primarily to the modern Orthodox crowd. Art Scroll is really more traditional, whereas Koren is aiming at the college-educated, more modern crowd. Yeah, they're fully Orthodox. Here's an example of what the cover looks like for the Koren Tanakh. I was not able to obtain a page of their English. I've used this Tanakh. I just personally do not own it. You see they have their own font as well. This is a famous font, the Koren font. This font was developed for their famous Jerusalem Bible, which probably was one of the first Hebrew English Bibles that you might be familiar with. It certainly was my first Hebrew English Tanakh. All in all, a very usable font. This is from Esther. So if this interests you, also check it out. Okay, so that pretty much is the presentation on Tanakhs. By all means, follow up. This is probably the quintessential Jewish book. Obviously, it's the book, and for that reason, it is the first in our installment. First of our installments in this series, The Jewish Bookshelf. Okay, I appreciate you tuning in. Kol Tuv, Keep learning.